Hello everyone and welcome back to another album review, and in this video I'm going to review Increasingly Disturbing Behavior by Toshiji Mikawa and Takeshita. This is a brand new split that was released by the independent label Imploding Sounds, which as I've seen mainly focuses on underground, experimental and extreme stuff. And surely when you get into an album like this, you know what to expect. Toshiji Mikawa is a pretty well known name, actually one of the pioneers when it comes to the Japanese scene. He is mostly known for being part of projects like the Incapacitants and Hijokaidan. When it comes to Takeshita, it's a name that I haven't heard before prior to this album, and it seems to be a much more recent project without that much of an attraction to it. So obviously I got into this album expecting something big, especially from Toshiji Mikawa, and in a sense I basically got what I was expecting with a Toshiji Mikawa side, which is not necessarily one of the greatest aspects because it really has many similarities when you think of some of the latest releases and Capacitants have done over the years. It still though serves as having two pretty decent, lengthy 10-minute tracks that have the signature sound that you would expect from a Toshiji Mikawa track. It's basically just really intense pieces of noise music that would mostly have walls and feedback to them. There might be a few manipulations here and there, but they're mostly going to be in the background. What mostly stands out is the massive walls of noise, which in past releases might be a bit more lo-fi. In the later ones the sounds are definitely much more detailed, though the sound is a bit toned down a little. I would say that some of the more recent stuff from Incapacitants, for example, do not have the intensity of the older ones, but when it comes to main structures and ideas, we're mostly talking about similar stuff over here. This is a side that in my opinion it's definitely really serviceable and it does its job well. It's not though something that is really that impressive or that much intriguing, considering that, like I said, Toshiji Mikawa seems to have done stuff like this in numerous occasions. I would say that the track Euglena Dusk is definitely the most standout moment in this entire project, mainly because I really like some of the aspects when it comes to some of the manipulations that might be more into the background side, but it still makes for some really intriguing elements. Even if the track might become somewhat repetitive, I think that there are many great aspects that this track goes through, and it makes for a pretty satisfying result. On the other hand, the track Roaring Rattle for me became quickly repetitive and somewhat forgettable. In my opinion, this track dragged a bit longer than what I want to. This is still a pretty solid moment in terms of sound, and it has its moments, but at this point I was already somewhat fulfilled with what the previous track was going for, and so at this point it just felt a bit overwhelming with this track without providing this much to the whole mix. I would say that when it comes to the Takeshita side, it's more of the same in the sense that the two tracks don't really have many differences to them, they mostly go into the same directions. However, when it comes to the Takeshita side, you would instantly realize that this is much more intense and much more chaotic and aggressive. Takeshita's side goes much more into some standard harsh noise wall directions, and it's much louder compared to the Toshiji Mikawa stuff. There is an apparent volume difference from one side to the next. Takeshita's side in comparison, it's much louder and much more extreme. Now the good thing about this side is that it's not just entirely monotone harsh noise wall. It is one of those occasions where you would have free improvised elements in the background and other walls of noise going into much higher frequencies, which is something that I basically like. I always like when there is this contrast between really low and high frequencies, and it makes for a really nice mess of the sounds coming together. So for me, the track Acolytes, the first one, does a really good mix of those two aspects, and it makes for a track that even in its repetitive nature, it manages to be constantly engaging from start to finish. And I would say that the track The Brood, the next one, also goes into more of the same, so this makes it another sort of predictable moment. However, I would say that I find much more of a consistency from the Takeshita side rather than the Toshiji Mikawa side where I really found that the track Roaring Rattle didn't really have that much to offer. On the other hand, the track The Brood seems that it nicely incorporates what made the previous song somewhat interesting and engaging in the first place. So the Takeshita side, in my opinion, was pretty well done as well. And with that being said, I like that this is a somewhat short release that is straightforward and straight to the point, and there is not really something that special or incredible about it, so do not really get into this with high expectations. However, it is definitely a suggestion if you're looking for a noise release from this year. I think the best way to describe it is that this is a serviceable split that gets the job well done, and it leads to what I would say that overall is a pretty interesting harsh noise release. I'm going to give Increasingly Disturbing Behavior a 7 out of 10. What's your opinion on this split? Like it, dislike it, why, and what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.